The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is James from Cave Dweller Music. I have my co-host Brendan with me. Today we have two guests for you, Patrick Schober and Ryan Foster from Slightly Fuzzed and Monster Riff. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you both taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime. For anyone who doesn't know who you are or what your sites are, do you want to maybe just explain yourselves and what you do, essentially?
So I'm with Slightly Fuzzed. We mostly just create kind of funny content based around stoner rock and doom and that kind of music. A podcast has grown from there. A few different podcasts, in fact. So YouTube channel, Instagram, funny stuff, podcast, that kind of thing is what Slightly Fuzzed is all about. And recently more satire, which I'm sure Pat will get into as well, but dipping my toe into the writing world also.
Yeah, and Monster Riff is a few things. It's primarily a blog. It started off about primarily stoner rock, and that has expanded into psych and fuzz and doom and all of the other related subgenres. Obviously, there's a Facebook and Instagram attached to that, and then eventually rolled out a companion podcast. And Ryan recently started contributing to the blog. We kind of go back and forth. We started a satire thread or category maybe 6 months ago, around then, and so that's been a lot of fun. I had a satire blog years ago. It never really did anything, but I would posted to it religiously for a few years. I called Mercury's Mailbag, and that sort of died out, and this has been just a fun way to kind of keep in shape, have some fun, have some laughs, try to be as funny as Ryan is, but that never really quite works out the way I hope, but it's been a lot of fun.
It has been fun. I enjoy it, and that couple week period in between articles is much needed. I'm not very prolific, but it's fun to get rolling every once in a while.
Yeah, it's just something different. Nothing serious. It's also like a fun break for me. It's a fun break from just writing reviews and things like that.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cave Dweller Music actually does have a republication partnership with Monster Riff, and they've shared some really fantastic content with us. You may have seen a little while ago, they actually posted a introduction to the history of Doom article that did really well. I'm sure a lot of you read that and enjoyed that. So yeah, if you want to get into the genre and you don't really know how, it's a great place to start.
Yeah, thank you. That was a fun article to write, especially like we were saying before the show. My knowledge of Doom is very limited, and that was also a good introduction for me to finally do that article. So I've picked up bits and pieces here and there. You read things, you listen to different bands, but that was my first time really sitting down and kind of putting all of the pieces together and sort of seeing how all of the fabric has sort of woven itself over the last 60 years.
Yeah, then you did another really cool piece as well that was looking at I guess comedy or humor in the stoner scene, which I
that was a Ryan piece.
Oh, that was you.
Fantastic. That was one of my first ones that I wrote for Monster Riff, and if all the stuff that I look at and do in Slightly Fuzzed is humor related, I felt like it was time to kind of dig it in and show everybody what I'm always looking at and trying to find and stuff. And that was a fun one to write. Lots of funny stuff out there. Lots of different ways to be humorous, especially in this kind of music, for sure.
And I think that's one of the things that makes the underground part of stoner rock so much fun. Is I think this is a place where metal, I think, is a great venue for humor, because it's hard to just be pretending to be Vikings all the time. You need a little levity there to kind of balance that out. And I feel like there's a better balance in stoner rock, because it's called stoner rock. I mean, it's already a genre that doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think this is a space where you have a little bit more freedom to not take yourself seriously, to have some fun. I mean, how many album covers are there of just somebody smoking from a bong or making fun of sleep and walking through the desert or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you look at bands like, oh my gosh, what are they called? That Simpsons theme one from Australia.
Dr. Colossus.
Dr. Colossus.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
album that's I have a big bud and my butt smells and
Yes.
I kiss my own. Yeah, I mean that's perfect example of that stoner humor is not taking it too seriously.
Yeah,
But that's such a good album.
It's such a
Yeah.
good album. They're such a good band, and that's what's great about this scene also, and that band in particular, is that it's not a joke. It's not, just a goofy band. It's like they're good. They make good music and good albums, but they don't take themselves too seriously. They have this Simpsons theme that they just keep rolling with, and there's a lot of bands like that they have funny band names or album names, or they have artwork or whatever it is, but it's not a joke. It's not like it's good
I
stuff.
always loved Red Fang. They always had hilarious videos.
Right.
They have the best
music's
videos,
really
yeah.
killer, and it's so good. A Viking video, right?
No, it was the beer can armor video.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
That was for Prehistoric Dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. And then you have to look any further than that band. Was it Bong Bong Beer Wizards?
Oh yeah.
That's
It's a great name.
The name says everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you're right. Metal in general, there are every now and then people have a sense of humor, and sometimes they don't. And I think black metal is probably one of the hardest genres to have a sense of humor in, because people really like to take it seriously. But
One of the OG metal gods, like Ozzy Osbourne, he might be the funniest man in rock and roll. He might be one of the funniest people in all of rock history.
Right.
And he was the Prince of Darkness. So lighten up a little bit,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of bands that do have that humor that outside of just stoner doom stuff. Like look at Gua. Gua is so commercially successful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nothing but humor driving their music. It's great. But and then the thing is, people don't take them seriously sometimes. But musically, they're very talented.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's interesting about stoner rock too, is that it's humor without a gimmick a lot of times too. I'm trying to think of a band maybe in stoner rock or doom that's got that gimmick to them, kind of like Guar. I mean, they have a thing,
Yeah.
And I don't know that stoner rock and doom. I don't know. Stoner rock in particular, I know a lot better, but I don't know if many bands have a gimmick to them. They just have a sense of humor. They just don't take it very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of metal bands that have an angle, a gimmick, or something. And whereas in stoner rock, I just feel like they're I don't know, we're older, we're old, we have day jobs, we're not gonna try to play up anything. We're just gonna go out there and we're gonna rock, and they can be funny. They can kind of be themselves within a lot of it.
Right. I think the exception with doom is probably Epic Doom, the monk robes and the whole effect on stage and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that plays into that whole sound, and I think that really helps make it. Candlemass, perfect example.
Right.
You wouldn't, Messiah with the robe and everything was just part of the whole feel of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard now looking at that stuff. When I was a kid, growing up and getting into metal and stuff, I ate that stuff up. The as gimmicky as it might have been, masks, face paint, any of that stuff. I'm all right, cool. This is crazy. I like this. And now, as an older person, it seems corny to me most of the time. So I like that kind of laid back humor that stoner rock has. They're not trying to put on some gimmick most of the time, and I can appreciate that as I've gotten older. I've found a lot of that metal stuff to get cornier and cornier as I've gotten older, and maybe it's just me, but I don't know.
I definitely have had the same journey where you're growing up and you see the shirtless super ripped rock star on stage, and you're oh, he's so cool, and look at them. Or you see somebody all dressed in all black and he look so tough, and you're oh, that's awesome. And then you grow up and you're 40 and have kids, why don't you calm down a little bit? And I think stoner rock is just the mellow version of all of that.
Yeah, I think I can relate to it more at this point in my life than I can a lot of heavy metal type stuff that I used to really be into a lot. I've just kind of I can relate to this a little bit more.
Yeah,
I think that's the other thing as well. Lyrically, it's a lot more relatable than a lot of other metal content. If you look at death metal, black metal, even power metal, the fantasy stuff, stoners. I mean, anyone can buy a bong. It's.
If you want to buy a van, you want to go cruising in the desert, you want to get high, I can accomplish all of those tonight,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's the music that, and I have friends that are really into like power metal and stuff too, and I'm just like, I just can't do it. I'm not gonna go slay dragons and stuff, and I can't do it. I don't get it. I can't relate to this at all. I've never been into that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't think anyone comes to stoner rock like for the lyrics first, you know. But I think that's like
Yeah.
a funny like part of it though is like when you do get a really good lyricist, I think they really stand out in this space. Like Neil Fallon, like he's like a really from Clutch, he's like a really gifted storyteller. He has a very distinct voice, and like I cherish his voice for being that unique. But he's also really funny in that like James Maynard sort of way, like tongue in cheek, like really just kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, did he really just say that? Like that's super funny. Like when vegans attack on 10-speed bikes, like that's hilarious. Like, that's the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And he'll just like rip those off so quickly. And then like to Ryan's point, oh, here's another song like Fittage by Thousand Mods. Like as I'm driving with my angel by my side, like he's just cruising through the desert again. He's got a lady, check. He's got like a muscle car, check. In the desert, check. And just
Yep.
like going through the stoner rock list of lyrics.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that lyrics have to be relatable. That's certainly not my point, because
Right,
there's
right.
there's plenty of songs that I love, and even in stoner rock about like going to space and stuff like that. That's not necessarily relatable. I guess that's not my point, but you
I
know.
do want to clarify that was not a dig at Thousand Miles. I will scream that song to the top
Yeah.
of my lungs down the road. I'll listen to it when I'm driving through the
You know who
the
else we just
highway.
talked about on the Fuzz Club was Queens of Stone Age, and Josh Homme's kind of sense of humor and in his lyric writing and stuff. And I don't think that anyone really thinks of Queens of Stone Age as like a funny band necessarily, but he's got this like way of writing certain little phrases that are really funny. Like if you read the lyrics and
Yeah.
stuff, like he's got a really witty sense to him, that he's just got like wit just throughout songs and albums and everything else.
Yeah, he's a good bit of wordplay.
Yeah.
Like especially stuff that you didn't see. Well, who was writing lyrics in Kyuss? Was that mostly Brent Bjork? No, I guess it would have been Josh because he got most of the writing credits, and just part of the reason they broke up. But I don't know who wrote. I don't know if that was John who wrote the lyrics.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
James Brendan, and do you guys know?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I know the members, but I don't know who did what.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he did some writing for sure, but
Anyway, yeah, he is a lot more humor. It takes things a lot lighter in Queens. You even see that in like Songs for the Deaf. Like it's it's just 1 hour of like radio. Like that's a concept album that's pretty lighthearted.
yeah.
Mm. I actually I was driving from Palm Desert to Vegas down back roads, and I played Kyuss the entire way. And it was very fitting.
Nice.
Yeah, hell yeah. Most road trips I've been on, I've played Songs for the Deaf at least once, at least like getting out of town. Like I'll put that album on. It's just a good like driving as fast as you can down the road kind of an album. And I mean it's like literally what it's about. It's like
Yeah,
that's like the concept, you know. But I've been on a few long driving road trips, and that album's always in that rotation somewhere.
Nice.
Back when CDs were a thing. I mean, I don't know about now if I just had my phone on Bluetooth, you know, but back when I
Right.
had CDs, I'd be like, all right, this one,
Yeah.
and then we'll go to this one, and then we'll go to this one, and you got to like plan it out.
Do you remember those like CD shufflers in the back of the car you could get
Yeah.
installed, and you have like
Yeah.
it was like 8 or something, and they just rotate as they finished.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never
That
had
was-
one, but that was a big deal. That was a cool thing. Got a disc changer in the trunk. Yeah.
Yeah,
My-
no, I never had one either.
My brother had like a $500 Ford Escort, and he put like $2,000 worth of like music technology inside of it. It was the funniest little car.
Yeah, I
That's
had a
awesome.
truck. My first vehicle was a truck, and it had like the back seat in it, and I filled the back seat with like these 12-inch subwoofers, and I mean it was stupid. It was insane. It was like rattling the windows and stuff. But at the time, it mattered a lot. You know, back in
Yeah.
2005, it mattered. Your the CD player, out of factory CD player, and subwoofers.
I thought I was pretty tame as like a driver and music listener because I've never like tricked out my car like that until like this was a couple years ago. I got home and my wife pointed out that the dog always knew when I got home, even though we have like street parking, because he could just like hear me even with the windows rolled up, like coming down down the road.
Yeah.
That's the little things that matter.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So humor and all that aside, at the moment, like 2023 wise, who's standing out to you this year? What are some of the releases that you guys are picking up on that you're digging?
Oh man, that is a packed question. Hold on, let me pull up what I've written about so far this year, and then I'll get back.
Yeah. Seeing who like I submitted for Doom charts, and seeing who's been on the top of that list, like Black Rainbow's put out a new album. They're
That's
kind of
good.
like legendary, stoner rock type of thing, heavy psych kind of a thing.
Love that
Personally, I
band.
love the new the Hail the Void. To me, that's a top 10 of the end of the year list already for me. Is Hail the Void's Memento
Nice.
Mori album. Yeah,
What about the new Mutoid Man? You guys digging
I
that?
love that. We were just kind of talking about that, Pat and I, on the last podcast, and I love the new Mutoid Man, and I've been a fan
Yeah.
of theirs for the last couple albums. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're
great.
really good.
Yeah.
A friend of
I
mine got me into them, and because they kept on doing those little shows and having like guests on, and featuring people. And my friend just kept sending me these videos, and I'm just like, this is awesome. And then like, come to find out, it's actually just a band, and you're just, yeah, man, they're awesome.
Yeah, so we I think what was it, Pat? Episode 2, we did the Cave In album for Fuzz Club,
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3.
and
I forget the exact order.
that's one of the guys from Mutoid Man, right? I remember kind of bringing it up at the
Mm.
time. He's in Cave In, and then
Yeah.
Mutoid Man, and he's got that podcast thing that he does, and then Jeff Matz from High on Fire was on this new Mutoid Man album. They have a good like circle of people. He's always kind of like surrounded himself with really talented, really great musicians and stuff.
Yeah. I have been earlier in the year, I was really taken by that Sorceress re-release, Beneath the Mountain. That was with
Nice.
like ALN from Ms. Moore and MSW from Hell. That was like
Yeah.
a super cool blast from the past. A couple other albums. Godsleep, Lies to Survive. I don't think it was as well received as some of their earlier work. I loved that one. It really got out of like the stoner rock mold and was like a little bit grungier, a little bit more like, I'm not going to say pop rock, but it was more like radio friendly. But the two albums that I've been listening to a lot were Margarita Witch Cult's
Nice.
self-titled, and then I loved Ara Layer's Thousand Petals last month. I thought that was an incredible album. It's some tough competition last month, but I thought they're doing a really great job of kind of pushing what stoner rock and doom can be, and just melding all of these different genres together into something that's unique. And I think that quality of being unique is really special. Easy to get lost in the crowd.
Yeah, it's a definitely a unique album that they put out. It's a lot of interesting things going on, and it's hard to kind of like put it into one box, and they do just a lot of different things on it, and it keeps your interest throughout. It's cool. So it's one to check out for sure. Whether you like it or not or whatever, it's just like it's one of those things that you should check out and like kind of walk around in it for a while and listen to it in different places and different scenarios, and it's just like let us do its
Yeah.
thing.
Let it bring you places.
Yeah,
We would both dig the Oho Malo Black Light Fever Tripping. I don't know if you guys have heard that one.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's
Came
good.
out. When did it come out? July 7th. It's I don't know. It's like it's really fun blend of like stoner sludge and hard rock. Super
It's like
groovy.
a kind of more like a not as what do I want to call it? It's like Wofat almost, but like I don't know, more southern in a way. I don't know how else to.
Yeah, I don't know. I called it like Life of Agony meets Crowbar meets Wofat with some Motorhead. Yeah, it's a good time.
Oh, cool.
That's enough to convince you. Yeah, I'd do that.
And then there was a really cool psychedelic artist from Indonesia, West Java, called Mud Spencer. He did an album called Kliwon. That's just awesome psychedelic. Just really, really good.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know that either. Cool.
Bastard Sword. Did you guys hear that one?
No.
There's like a stoner sludge psych. I think from memory that was like mostly instrumental, but March 3rd that came out. And I'll give one more. Rough Magic, Electric Ram from South Africa.
I like Rough Magic. Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah,
That one was fun.
We were just talking about the new album from Acid Magus, it's called, right?
Mhm.
And what's his name? John Holiday, I think, from Rough Magic was like a guest on that album. It was kind of interesting. Like he threw in like this real like different spin on that song because the rest of the album doesn't sound like Rough Magic by any means, but his vocals are so distinct that it added kind of this interesting thing to that album, which is a great album too. I think it came out this month. So
Yeah,
it's a good
it
album.
did. I actually haven't checked it. I have it in my library. I just haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah.
I need to support it because I'm originally South African. So any chance I get to, support South African groups, I do what I can.
Yeah.
But
Rough Magic is one of those bands from South Africa that I always kind of keep up with because they put out a lot of material that's interesting and just really good stuff.
They tour a lot too. They're like barely in South Africa. They're always around places when they release an album. I know the lead singer wasn't he hospitalized for a while? It's in the description of the album, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what the album's about. The new Rough Magic one from memory. He made like the lyrics are all about his time being like separated from society, basically.
Gotcha.
Anything coming out that you're aware of that people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah. A member of the Fuzz Club, Blake Carrera of IWAS, has a killer album coming out later this year. I should know the date. I think it's.
I was going to say October, but that could be
October
the single.
13th.
Okay, I was going to say maybe the single is October. I don't remember, but yeah,
the single's coming out very soon, like in the next couple of weeks, and I think October 13th is. But that's going to be a great record. That's the big one on my radar. I'm going to check the editorial calendar. I think there are a couple others that I'm excited about.
Personally, there's a band out of Washington called Cadabra, and kind of like Heavy Psych. It's on Heavy Psych Records. So
yeah,
that one's coming out, I think, in October. That'll be good. Hippie Death Cult's got another one coming out in maybe September or something like that.
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to Howling Giant. It's got Glass Future. That's also in October.
That's going to be a good month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Astral Construct, which is a solo project out of Colorado. He has a project or an album coming out this Friday, so probably by the time this episode's out. That's a really cool cosmic psychedelic project. Demons My Friends have an album coming out soon, I think. And then there's a new Kal-El, which is like an EP, like a couple songs. That was really cool. And then
Ripple Music has two coming out soon. They look pretty exciting. The Appaloosa one, called The Shining Sun, that comes out.
I love those guys. Yeah,
September 20th.
I think I've just heard the one single maybe from that one, but I love their last couple albums, so that'll be a good one.
They dropped a second single now. There's two out.
Nice.
Yeah, and then there's one other one that they're bringing called, which one is it? Oh yeah, Blood Lightning.
Yeah,
that looks pretty cool.
That's got it's got one of the guy, I think the singer from Gozu maybe, which is Gozu put out an album this year that was great, and I think that's his like side project is Blood Lightning, and he's maybe the singer in that, and then a couple other guys from a few other bands or something.
Says guitarist Doug Sherman of Gozu with vocalist Jim Healy of We're All Gonna Die.
Okay, yeah.
It's a great band name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And then there was one other one coming in October that looked good as well. La Chinga, Primal Forces.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people talking about that. I don't know them super well, but I hear a lot of people talking about it.
And Ripple has been like on fire this year. I don't know, but like it's something they've done something. They're always good, but this year they've really been like knocking it out of the park.
Yeah. And first this year, it's not just like straight stoner rock or anything all the time. They put out some really weird albums and doom and stoner, and they even have like just some straight up like rock psychedelic type lighter stuff that's been really great. They've been on point for this year and last year a little bit, and doing really well.
Yeah, basically anything they've announced, I'll be like, all right, I'll give it a listen, because I don't think I've heard anything this year that I've actively disliked. I mean, like, okay, that's not my favorite, but like basically the standards like up here.
There's a band called Fire Down Below that's on Ripple, I think, and it's like straight up desert stoner rock. Like it reminded me a lot of like Kyuss. This is the one I was talking to you about, Pat. Cowboys and Aliens. It sounds a lot like Cowboys and Aliens.
that was
And
a cool
they're from
song
like
you
the
said.
same. They're from like the same place, like Belgium or something like that. And I was like, is this the same guy or something? I don't know. But it has a lot of that feel to it. It's like very deserty, very like. There's even I think one of their first singles was called like California. It's just like got that vibe of like the lyrics. You know, speaking of like straight up like stoner rock lyrics, it was about like want to see how high I can get, drive through California. It was like it was just like it was just to the point. Like here's what this song's about, and it's great though. I mean, it gives that vibe of like cool desert stoner rock. But that one comes out this month, next month maybe. But I'm kind of excited for it. I think it'll be good.
Did you guys hear that album called They Ride from a band called Iro, IROH? That came out like
Yeah,
April.
that was super good.
Yeah, it was so good. I mean, that because you mentioned
Yeah.
Queens of the Stone Age, it kind of reminded me of them a little bit in the sound there as well, and Kyuss to some extent. But I love the concept behind that, like the radio DJ narrating the end of the world from like a alt-right perspective.
Yeah,
it was like another. I mean, it was sort of like this a little similar concept to Songs for the Deaf, right? Like, oh, we're gonna be on a radio show for an hour. That was a great record. Monster Riff premiered in Exile for the music video when that came out. So
cool.
They're really cool dudes.
I had him on like an episode of Real or Fuzzed also. It's one I enjoyed quite a bit.
Nice. All right, I might hit him up because I'd love to chat with him about that album. It's I had a good time with that one.
Yeah, good dude. Yeah, definitely hit him up.
Brendan, I have talked a lot. Do you have questions?
No, you're good. You're good. A few have been answered through just talking and whatnot. Well, as writing reviews and doing all that fun stuff, have you had anybody tell you to like don't publish that or anything like that? Like just like no, don't do it or take it down.
Typically the music I review is stuff that I like, and that makes it pretty easy because very rarely am I in a situation where I'm like, oh, this, like I know they tried, but I don't really, this album wasn't that great. I have this review and now I have to publish it. And so it's very rare that I have a review that's like really negative. In fact, we might have only done like one or two reviews that were sort of like a really low score, and it was like we had conversations was like, can this band take a hit or not? And it was like, yeah, they're big enough that they can take like a low score and it's not going to affect their popularity or anything. But for the most part, I think bands are really appreciative of the way the reviews are formatted intentionally. And like part of the way the reviews are set up is, you know, we do the introduction, do an about the band, do a song by song review and analysis, and then final thought section. And the final thought section is just like, here are the standout tracks. Here's what I think is great about this album. And then here's what I think could be improved. And a lot of bands reach out and say like, hey, I really appreciate that sort of like constructive feedback. And that's something that we're going to take into account in the next record. Whether or not they're blowing smoke at my butt, I don't know. But they do reach out and often say like, hey, I appreciate you being honest and stuff like that. And that means a lot to me because I feel like I owe it to the reader to be honest, and it's not enough to just always say like, oh, this band's really cool, this song was really cool. Like let's be honest about like, how could this be improved, and let's actually make this a legit review site. And so you have to be able to talk about both sides of the coin. But I don't think we've ever had requests to have anything taken down. There have definitely been times where I've just like had an inaccuracy where I've like had gotten a name wrong or something. There have been like other fights and arguments on Monster Riff, on other debates on things. Nick Pipitone of Third Eye, he did a great piece. We get a ton of traffic on this every day on like the top psychedelic bands and top modern psychedelic bands. And there's like constant chatter and debate in the comment section over like, oh, you forgot this band. Oh, you forgot that band. How could you overlook this band? And it's all just kind of like dumb
every
stuff,
time.
you know? Yeah,
Why
right.
didn't
Like
you
you
list
can't win, right?
Why didn't you list every band that's ever existed? Like,
Right. Right. And that's exactly what it is. And then there have been like other stuff that is like a little bit more dramatic, but overall 99% all of the feedback is good.
Nice.
I don't use or anything, but I've done plenty of like parodies of album covers with
Yeah, I've
questionable,
seen those. They're good.
and I've seen them. I've seen the bands like I'll like tag them or like send them a message with it or something, and I'll see them look at it. It says "seen," and then no comment. I haven't had any like reach out and be like, "What the fuck is this? Take it down. This is terrible." But I kind of take the I seen it but didn't say anything as like a
Yeah,
don't
thanks,
like
guy.
I held my breath a little bit when we published your satire piece on the Electric Wizard being sued by the wizard on the cover for
Yeah.
all that stuff. Because like I'll be honest, like the dudes in Electric Wizard terrify me. And I was like, oh, here we go. Let's see if they say anything. And I didn't hear anything about it. But
I mean, I don't know that we've like reached them quite yet, but
no.
Yeah,
like I'm reading their book right now, that White Rabbit published. I forget what it's called, but it's a great book, and it's really well like published. It's beautiful. It's got this great cover and all this kind of stuff. And I'm only like a couple chapters in, but yeah, I'm a little terrified of those guys also.
that's funny. Who like getting into parodies and whatnot, or a satire. What were you? What was your first like thought on like trying to get into that?
Well, the parodies that was it. That was what Slightly Fuzzed was. A couple years
Yeah.
ago when I started it was just I just wanted to make funny album covers, whether they were completely made up or they were parodies or whatever. I just wanted to make funny album covers with my background in graphic design and just something to have fun with, but
Right.
kind of based in stoner rock. So that was that, and it grew from there, and people seemed to like it and appreciate it for the most part, and it grew into other things from there. But the satire for me, and Pat, I won't speak for you or anything, but watching some other satire places, and I don't know, it just seemed like they were kind of like taking the low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
Just kind of like making satire articles based around music or punk or whatever, and it just seemed like, really, I don't know, man, I don't know, that just seems cringy. Like there's a writer and I make dick drawings on album covers, so we could put our skills together and do something there.
yeah.
Like I said earlier, for me, it was sort of like here's an opportunity to just like inject a little bit of fun. And there, Monster Riff, I feel like I have an identity crisis inside Monster Riff like every 6 months, and I would say like last year I was just kind of burned out on it. I just like it just seemed like a job, and I was like asking around for people who wanted to review. And I think as part of that, started thinking about like, how do I keep this exciting for me? And as part of
Right.
that, we started talking about satire. And like years ago, I had dreams of like, one of the things I wanted to do in my life was like have an article published by The Onion. I also loved Cracked in like high school and like college. And like, I was like working real hard to get something published in there. I will say, as a side note, people like poo-poo Cracked for being Cracked. It is really, they have a really, really rigorous editorial process, and you can submit any sort of idea, but you have to like submit the idea. And this was maybe like 10 years ago at this point. This was the process. You have to submit the idea and have like your research and outline ready to go. And then the community will give you feedback on that. And then you have to iterate and then resubmit it. And so I had a piece that I thought was like rock solid, and I submitted it, and it got kicked back, and they were like, this is a nice concept, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, I'm too tired. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, this doing this stuff with Ryan was an opportunity to get back into it. And to be honest, going into it with Ryan and knowing that he, one, would be carrying 50% of the load, and two, Ryan's a lot funnier than I am. Having him as a sounding board gave me the confidence and the freedom to say like, okay, I know we're going to be able to pull this off, and it's not just going to be Pat at Monster Riff just kind of flopping around trying to make a joke every 2 weeks. Like we're gonna be legit. We're gonna do a good job. And I've been super happy with it so far. And those are always the most popular articles, unfortunately. Fortunately and unfortunately, we put a lot of effort into the other stuff, and the satire always wins.
Yeah.
You guys just bounce ideas off each other, like, hey, would it be funny if we wrote something like this?
Yeah, sometimes for sure. I mean, sometimes we have like kind of half fleshed out ideas that will kind of bounce off each other and be like, I think there's something there. We'll have to think about it and let it roll around a little bit. And sometimes, like if I just get, or you just get something rolling and you write it, and we'll send each other the almost finished piece. But there's been plenty of times where we'll be like, what do you think about this? Is this funny? Is there something here?
Yeah, we'll have to workshop it. Yeah.
I remember the one for the in New Roman Times, and then like I was like, it was so dumb funny. I was like, how the guy was like playing that old timey friggin' circus music machine, and he's like, and then like the guy doing the ham bone, and it was perfect. You know what I mean?
Thank
like
you.
I was like telling James, I was like, this is like us, but dad humor. Like this is it's perfect. Like this is awesome. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good,
and
definitely.
I think what's funny about it in the back end is like sometimes the idea is like the real joke comes to us at the very last second, like right before it's due. We did a piece a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, about a guitarist who dies after like he's cleaning out his closet and all of his guitar pedals fall on top of him.
Oh,
and that initially, it was the same exact concept, but it was a guitarist who had 27 guitars hung up on his wall, and the band played too loud during practice, and all of the guitars fell off and landed on top of him. And I was like, that's funny, like that works. And like showed it to Ryan, and he was like, yeah, that kind of works. And like I was like, actually, wait a second, I think it should be or was that you, Ryan, that recommended the pedal? No,
I don't remember.
I sent it to you, and I was like, hey, this is done, but I think maybe it'll be funnier if it was his guitar pedals. Like that makes more sense. Like no one's going to have 27 guitars, but they're definitely going to have 27 guitar pedals.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that's the way to go. So I quickly, like, I think that morning rewrote it, and then we published it.
And it was the way to go. I mean, it's definitely, because this scene, like everyone just has this thing for effects and guitar pedals and their amps and all this kind of stuff. And I think that it worked, with the pedals. And you didn't see that until the 11th hour, but
right. And after the other article's already written, and you're like, oh, that's just scrapped now.
Yeah.
Do you ever like write something and then think, oh, this is going to piss people off, maybe we shouldn't run it and make changes? Or...
all the time. It's usually like, so we kind of talked about I don't know, we've been talking for a while, I don't know if this was in this episode or beforehand, but we talked about the History of Doom article, right? And the end of that article is talking more about like contemporary bands that have had like a really significant place in history. And that was like a really big challenge for me to like say like, okay, these are the 4 bands that are contemporary and have been around for the last 20 years and are really influential, and the bands that are going to stand the test of time. So in 50 years, when we do another look back, these are still going to be the bands that we talk about. Like that's challenging. And so I was sort of braced for that blowback conversation, or this band should have been included. Everyone's going to have an opinion. And
right.
You just have to be ready for that. And sometimes those opinions are valid. All opinions should be valid, but sometimes they're not as informed as they should be.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's part of it with anything where you have any sort of opinion or judgment, like value judgment included. We are coming up on time, so I'll just quickly wrap things up here. I have one last question for you guys before you head off. It's a little bit of a on the spot one. Feel free to answer whichever order you like. If you were stuck on a desert island, you had a solar-powered Discman and 3 CDs that you could listen to on repeat till you got rescued, what would you want to have with you?
I can put one out there easily, and we were talking about this not that long ago, but it's the self-titled Queens of Stone Age debut. I love that album, and it changes with my mood, which is what I think makes it a desert island record for me. Is if I'm angry, it seems like a little bit angrier of a record. If I'm sad, it seems like it's got this sadness to it. If I'm in a good party mood, it seems like a party record, and it just kind of changes to fit whatever mood I'm in. And I absolutely love that record. That would be That would be one of them. I'd have to think about the other two.
Off my hip here, off the cuff, whatever. I would do that R Layer record we talked about earlier. Blues for the Red Sun. And last year, a couple years ago, this band from I think it was a Colombian band, Saman, put out an album called Montaña Roja, which I thought was like one of my front runners for album of the year. I still love going back to that. So in this moment, off the cuff, those are the three I would pick. I'm going to hate that answer in 5 minutes.
Interesting choice. They're a little bit newer, though. I'm surprised. I mean, those are two newer records. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. I guess if I had to keep picking, maybe a Metallica record or something. Just something I could listen to over and over again. Astro Queen, Into Submission. It's one of my favorite records.
That's a great one.
Nice.
It's always good. It's solid all the way through. I would say maybe that one. Maybe a rap record. Maybe I have to think about some rap just to switch it up a little bit in case I get tired of rock or metal. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thanks for so much for coming on the show. Before you go, do you want to just let people know what are the best places to listen to the podcast, read the website, follow you on socials?
For me, Slightly Fuzzed on Instagram is kind of the hub for everything. That's where, I post all updates and all funny stuff and all links and all that kind of stuff. So Instagram's the place to start. I'm also on Twitter, but it's a little bit less active. YouTube is where you can get the podcast and all that kind of stuff. But the podcast really is available everywhere. It's on Spotify and iTunes and all that kind of stuff. But you get video on YouTube. So start with the Instagram, and if you can stomach it, then you can go off to the other stuff too.
Yeah, and I think the best place to get all the Monster Riff updates is just monsterriff.com. You'll find me on Facebook and Instagram. And then I think you can find the podcast just about anywhere, but I always point people to Spotify, and it's Monster Riff Presents is the name of the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the humor.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks
guys. This was a lot of fun.
Anytime. Yeah. And for everyone listening home, come back next week. We will have another guest for you.